Well, hello there, and welcome back. My name is Stephanie Safarian, and you're listening to episode 496 of Sustainable Minimalists. This is a listener-supported show about intentional and eco-friendly minimalist living. And on today's show, we are discussing minimalism's ripple effects, let's say. We're discussing the lasting changes that those of us who consider ourselves either full-on minimalists or minimalist-leaning, perhaps, we're discussing the lasting changes that the lifestyle has made on both our habits and our mindset. Now, this show is approaching its 500th episode. Yes, it is. Oh, my goodness. And in celebration of this milestone, I found myself curious as to, again, those ripple effects, those lasting impacts of minimalism on this community. So minimalists talk a lot about having more free time, having more money in the bank account, having less stress in their lives. We hear those benefits ad nauseum, right? But these are, again, benefits. They're secondhand benefits to minimalism. I want to go deeper, and I want to get to the bottom of exactly how we are approaching life differently, how our mindset and our habits have changed thanks to minimalism. So I put this question out on my Instagram stories for those of you who follow, and I got a lot of responses, over 100. I'll just share a couple here. In terms of mindset shift, one person wrote to me and said, I don't need to keep up with my neighbors anymore. I rarely find myself in comparison mode. What a mindset shift, right? Another person touched on gratitude and said that they feel that even though their house is small, these days it feels much bigger. So 2 mindset shifts there. And in terms of habit shifts, you guys wrote in droves with regard to habit shifts. For some of you, your desire to spend time in nature has grown exponentially. For others of you, you find it much easier to scroll right by ads that are targeting you. For still more of you, you wrote that you think twice before buying. That's a really important habit that so many non-minimalists are still struggling to learn, right? So I received an awful lot of responses. I have synthesized them. And tomorrow, if you are on my email list, I'm sending out a post that celebrates all of you and the changes you've made. So stay tuned for that. If you're not on my email list, but you want to get the post, you can sign up for free in Substack. Links in the show notes. Now, to further dive deeper into those ripple effects of minimalism, today I'm bringing you an interview. I'm speaking with Elena Jindra. She is the brains behind the Hobby Hour Substack. I've linked to that in the show notes. I was, doing my scrolling and I came across her post with regard to 10 changes she's made since becoming a minimalist. And I thought to myself, well, let's have a great conversation. Here it is. Elena, I'm really thrilled to have you on the show. How are you?
I am doing great. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm so good. We're talking today about ways you've been thinking about the world differently since adopting minimalism. But tell us first, who are you and what on earth do you do?
My day job is I am the dean of students and the secretary and the cross-country coach at a very small rural school district in northern Wisconsin. That's the meat and potatoes of what I do during the daytime. And then my husband and I, we just moved up to this neck of the woods about a year ago from Milwaukee, which was a really big change for us. We quit our jobs and we sold our house without a plan before we moved up here. And I write the Hobby Hour newsletter on Substack as just a little passion project of my own on the side. And I write a lot about sustainable things that I do, about minimalism and how that journey has been for me. And I also write about occasional crafts because that is how the blog really started for me.
You said something there, Elena, that we really have to talk about, which is you and your husband picked up and moved without a plan. I think that's what you said, which is quite interesting to me because that alone sounds like a very minimalist behavior. Those of us who are bogged down with an awful lot of clutter, an awful lot of obligations, we don't just pick up and move new places. So can you talk to me a little bit more about that?
So I'll go way back, actually. So we got married right when we finished college, and we lived in Milwaukee for a year. We spent a year living in a 444 square foot apartment, and we did the thing that I feel like most Americans are trying to do. We bought the house, we got better jobs, we worked really hard, and we accumulated a lot of stuff. And the day we moved into our house, which was like a dream of mine to be a homeowner, I got totally lost in the updating your home and like trying to make it feel like home. And now that I was a homeowner, I wanted to invest in furniture and like really decorate it and make it my own. And then last year, or 2 years ago now, I was like deeply dissatisfied with my job, and I was a special education teacher. So I knew that I needed to start to strip back everything so that we could move quickly whenever we wanted to. In March of 2022, I really started diving into decluttering and just getting rid of stuff. I could not believe how much stuff we had accumulated. And then, I just decluttered. And then finally in August of 2022, we listed our house and sold it. And our plan was really to not have a plan. We really appreciated the freedom in that. We just figured we'd figure it out, because at the time we were thinking, we could live in Colorado, or maybe we would end up back in Wisconsin, or maybe we would do something international. But we really love Wisconsin for whatever reason. We just keep boomeranging back to Wisconsin. So we did end up in northern Wisconsin, and that we just feel like we got really lucky with finding a place to live up here. And the rest is history, I suppose.
Can I just say, Wisconsin is lovely. I've been to Milwaukee. You've got the Brewers. I've been to a Brewers game.
Mm-hmm.
I've been to plenty of breweries in Wisconsin. I've even been to your art museum, which apparently, according to my architect husband, is like an architecture gem. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. It is. Yes. It's a Frank Calatrava. Yes.
There's a lot to love. Yes. My husband and I do occasionally travel just to see architecture gems. Okay. But let's talk about when you became a minimalist.
Yeah. So I feel like it's hard to exactly say when I was like, okay, I'm a minimalist, but there's like parts of me that has always been a bit of a minimalist. In this last stint or phase, I guess, I like really studied it, reading all the books, listening to all the podcasts, just obsessed in a way.
I like it. And so to that point, I want to talk to you about the changes that you've made in your life. And the first one, we're going to start with a bang, Alina, but that's with regard to you not watching as much TV anymore. I have a lot to say about the ways in which popular culture and mass media perpetuate consumerist culture. But before I say what I have to say, I'm curious, how does adopting minimalism for you translate into watching less television?
So I guess the easiest answer to that question is that we sold all of our TVs when we moved. We felt like that, like following the basic rules of decluttering of, is this replaceable? And we're like, yeah, very replaceable, very easy to replace a TV. We had 3 TVs, and 2 of them we'd actually gotten for free anyway. So we sold them without a question. So there's that answer to it. You just don't have a TV. It's one less item that you own. But also, the point of being a minimalist to me is that I have more time to do the things that I want to do. And at the end of my days, I am never like, I am just so glad I watched so many hours of TV tonight. It's so great. Good for me. I'm more like, oh, that's great, I read, or oh, great, we like had a great time talking to our friends in the hot tub at the gym. That was what we did for tonight, or we ate a nice meal. But I feel like there's so many things that come with sitting on the couch watching TV, you start eating more processed foods. For us, it was definitely drinking more alcohol. And then you start to look at what you're actually watching and you're like, okay, I want to be like that person. Look at how cute her outfit is. Maybe I could have an outfit that's like that. Or, I don't know, ad placements are so clever too, where you don't even realize you're seeing ad placements, but you're like, yeah, actually that Pepsi looks really good and it is placed purposefully. Otherwise it would be blurred out. It's on purpose.
Yeah, no, I'm on board. Celebrity culture isn't real life, right? Fast food is not real food. It's not real nutrition. Influencers are not real friends. I could go on and on. Like cosmetic surgery is not real beauty. The internet is not real connection. Again, I could go on, but I do feel as though mass media, the media in ways in which culture perpetuates itself are just, at the end of the day, more illusions that we either subscribe to or we don't. Sounds so great for you. Like you just simply sold your TVs. But for the rest of us, if we're not going to necessarily sell our TVs, maybe we just keep them off more or we keep them on less, because the shows, the reality TV shows, especially that show us how some people live, that's all an illusion at the end of the day. And it's very easy to fake reality. And I think that's what's happening. They're faking reality. I will say for me too, TV has lost its allure. Do I still love a good reality show? Yes. Do I still love Love is Blind? Yes. But I'm hoping that as a minimalist, I can see it for what it is, which is baseless entertainment at the end of the day.
Yeah, I was going to say it's literally just entertainment value. There is nothing else that you can get from it besides entertainment. And ironically, my husband and I were on an episode of International House Hunters when we were living in Spain, just because we thought it would be a fun thing to do. I can never watch reality TV the same after being on reality TV. Spoiler, it is super, super staged. None of it is even remotely real.
Speaking of House Hunters, I know somebody who used to work on House Hunters, and they said the exact same thing. We House Hunters watchers tend to think that it's this really real, really authentic experience, but it's not when you're on the other side. So thank you for saying that. I'll also just say too, for my children, like, I'm not saying they never watch TV, but I am saying we step further and further away from the television. And guess what else they've also stepped away from, which is also the other popular culture things that their age groups are into. So the music, the sayings, the clothing choices, the appearances. They've stepped away from all of it because mass media is the number one way that culture perpetuates itself. So if the culture is not aligned with your values, perhaps just taking a step back is a great minimalist step. So I'll say that. I now want to talk to you, Elena, about buying in bulk. For those of us who are budget conscious, there's the Costco, there's the Sam's Club and the BJ's and all of the buying in bulk options, but you also have to pay like $39 a year or whatever it is for the subscription. You say you don't buy in bulk anymore. Walk me through that decision.
So I don't see myself ever going back to buying in bulk because it doesn't work well with the way I want my house to be run. I feel a little bit out of control when I have like food piling up. Like to me, I have this little game I play with myself that I'll explain the game and then I'll explain how bulk shopping does not work for the game. It makes it very hard. But my little game I have for myself is goal zero is what I call it, where my goal is to run out. Like I want to have no food left in my house when it's time to go grocery shopping. That never happens, never ever, because there's always more flour or more rice or more of something, some sort of odds and ends before I make it to the grocery store. But the objective is to not waste any food. And with that, I'm trying to use up all the food that I have. And I do the same thing with my craft supplies. Like, I'm currently going through this phase or era, let's go with that, where I'm not buying more craft supplies until I use up the supplies that I have on hand. And since I've put such an effort into my goal zero activities and playing this little game with myself, I have found I am so much more creative, especially on the crafting side, but in the kitchen as well. So much more creative with using up the things that I have. And then it's also so much more satisfying to go and purchase my one thing and then use it up. But anyway, I don't think we'll ever shop in bulk again, just because I want to have full confidence that I'm going to get through what I have and not get bored of it before I just have to force myself to eat canned beans or whatever it might be. The one exception I would consider making is like for toilet paper. But even that, I just don't have the space for it right now. And since I'm trying to get to a smaller square footage, I don't think that I'll ever really have space for that. And we did run out of toilet paper a couple of weeks ago, and we survived. Like, it was fine. We were able to make it to the grocery store the following day, and it was absolutely fine.
Yeah, I guess my issue with bulk shopping is, I live in a 2,800 square foot house these days. And when I bulk shop, I lose stuff. Like, even with my best efforts, I lose stuff. So I buy 12 cans of tomato paste. They somehow get lost in my home. And then I find them 3 years later. I don't know how that occurs. Or even accepting in bulk, accepting a big trash bag or multiple trash bags full of kids' clothes. That sounds great, but I don't know how to adequately store the stuff so that it doesn't just become clutter that I later have to declutter because I missed the window of using it. And so I totally agree with you with regard to you don't buy in bulk because it's really, at the end of the day, if you don't know you have it, if you don't know you already bought it, it's just a waste of money. But I do have to say, too, we just came out of a pandemic and toilet paper was a hot commodity. So was, I don't know, hand sanitizer and certain foods. I feel like we're all living with one foot in the catastrophe door. Do you feel like that at all? And if so, how do you marry that with the non-desire to buy in bulk?
I do feel like people have a foot in the catastrophe door, especially with consumerism in general and like the way people live. And I think it's very easy to fall into that what if. To that, I'm just like, what if we don't worry about that? What if we ask our neighbors for help if we need it? What if we build a community? What if we become resourceful? What if we're creative? What if we make stuff ourselves? What if we're not scared? I find it to be a lot more freeing to live with less, where I can be like, oh, if I run out of toilet paper, I will just go next door to my neighbor and ask if I can please borrow some. And it will probably be a funny little story that we'll have to share later. Might be a little embarrassing at the moment, but it will be okay. We will figure it out, and it's not a big deal.
Yeah. To that point, you mentioned in your Substack post that we all consider storing it at the store. And I'll be honest, I have been in the minimalist realm for 8-10 years, and I've never heard store it at the store. So what on earth does store it at the store mean? And how can I do it? Because it sounds great.
It's the whole idea of, why are you paying extra money to have a larger home? Or why are you like hoarding things at home when most times in our lives when we go to the grocery store, they have exactly what we need. I really came to this saying from somebody one time. I heard somebody who uses Goodwill as their storage unit is what they say. So anything that they're not really using, they will donate to Goodwill. And then if they find that they need it later, they'll go to Goodwill and they will buy a version of what they donated before, and they will pay the price of the item and just consider it as their storage unit rental fee. And in my case, I would do the same and just consider it my lower cost of living fee of, I live in a small, cheap apartment. So now I can spend an extra $3 on this plate or whatever it is.
That makes total sense. You're paying less rent because you need less space. You're storing your stuff at Goodwill, essentially. Do I have that right?
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. And I'm wondering whether more younger people, I have no idea how old you are, Elena, but
I just turned 30 in June.
Okay. So I'm wondering, this is more of the mindset of people younger than me. Store it at the store. Like, we do not need to pay or invest in or sign our lives away to mortgages for these gigantic spaces to hold the stuff when we can store it at the store. That's genius. So to that point in which minimalism has just really infiltrated all aspects of your life, you write that minimalism has led to you eating healthier and drinking less alcohol. Please explain the connection here and hook me up because I want on.
Yeah, my husband is a certified sommelier and he works in the wine and spirits industry. And when we moved, we sold our 500 bottle collection of wine and spirits. So we used to have like a store worth of wine and spirits. It's every person's dream, it seems. People were always like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And it was amazing. But we sold all of that. We don't have it in our home anymore, although we do still have quite a few, more than normal people because of his work, but we keep it in a separate space. And I feel like the biggest thing regarding the alcohol consumption is that we used to sit on the couch and drink while watching TV. We don't do that anymore. It's a lot of just habit changing. And I feel like the connection to minimalism is I have chosen every item that is in my life and I have control over it. And I feel like that has transcended to having control in all parts of my life, including what goes into my body. It's a lot easier for me to say no to alcohol than it used to be. It's a lot easier for me to say yes to healthy foods. And we have more time to spend making healthy, delicious foods. But I feel like I'm so in control of everything now that I can put energy into feeding myself well.
I'll say the same. I've become really critical of marketing gimmicks with regard to stuff. And my critiques, let's say, have applied themselves also to food and alcohol as well. So I naturally now am making an awful lot more, if not all, food at home. Because deep down, I know that what's made at home is likely better and tastier and cheaper than anything that I could buy in a store. And same with drinks, right? And same with anything. Like anything that we can do ourselves, it doesn't have the premium attached to it. And so I know, I absolutely, without a doubt, like maybe there's no test to prove it, but I just know intuitively that we're eating better. My husband and I were drinking less and we're saving money on the back end because we're not so tuned in to the marketing messages that pull us here, there, or everywhere. But Elena, before we say goodbye, I want to talk about the fact that you are pretty darn handy. Your Substack is called Hobby Hour. You write that you try to make something before buying it, which oh my gosh, I'm so impressed. How has minimalism transformed you from a consumer in which you buy what you need to a creator in which you make what you need?
I'm really lucky that I grew up in a creative household, and I grew up knitting, and I knew my way around a sewing machine. So the intimidation factor of getting into a hobby like that is very low for me. I'm either skillful enough or delusional enough to believe that I can make just about anything. And it really comes to clothing, especially, actually anything, where if it's made out of a fiber, I can definitely make that. If it's something I put into my body, I can definitely make that. I'm not overly interested in making beauty products or hygiene products or anything like that. But I do make most of my cleaning supplies just because it's so easy. And why wouldn't you? But the slower I go at consuming things, the easier it is for me to think, oh, yeah, right now, I want a new quilt for my bed. And I have for a long time. There's really nothing wrong with the quilt on my bed right now, but I'm definitely going to make it myself. There's no way I would buy a quilt when I know that I can make it myself. And I look around at the things that I have decided to keep and the things that really make the cut in my life and that really bring me joy. It's mostly things that are handmade or things that are vintage or old that have stood the test of time. I guess that's the biggest thing, is that I have time to add things to my life very slowly, and that means that I can do it all myself.
Yeah, there's such a innate source of pride that comes with making something yourself. You care on the thing so much harder and longer and deeper when you made it, as opposed to some factory on the other side of the world, unnamed, faceless people or things making it, right?
Yeah.
I feel like we've totally lost that in this industrialized global economy. When we make stuff ourselves, we care about the stuff that we need so much more. Elena, what a conversation. Tell us where we can find more of you, more of the Hobby Hour online. Tell us all of it.
Yeah, you can find me at Hobby Hour on Substack. Otherwise, you can Google Hobby Hour on Substack, and I think that should bring you to where I am.
I'll link to you in the show notes so that it's an easy one-click option for listeners. But I want to thank you so much, Elena. I wish you so much joy and success in your life. And if I come back to your area, we're going to hang out. So get ready.
Yes, please come further north than Milwaukee. It gets better and better the further you go. But thank you so much for having me.
Listeners, that's our interview today. Show notes are at mamaminimalist.com/496. And I must say, after my conversation with Elena, I found myself thinking, I really journaled about it. I really tried to go deep and think about, well, how has my life changed since adopting minimalism 8 or 10 years ago? And the reality is that not only my habits, but also my perspective on life both have changed in profound ways, such profound ways that I'm not even sure I can verbalize all the ways, but I'll just give you a few of the biggest ways. I find myself so much more grateful for what I have now. I am also so much more present in those moments of true living. I find as though I can look at the blessings in my life and feel deep and real gratitude for those blessings. I also find as though I can adequately parse out the moments of distraction from the moments of true living. So I know what matters, I think is what I'm trying to say there. I also find myself, because I can identify what matters, it's getting easier for me to center my days, to prioritize what really matters. That's important. And it's not always easy because it seems as though the rest of the world, the rest of my sphere is centering their days around drastically different values. But it is getting easier over time to center my days around what feels right for me. And of course, too, yes, I'm empowered to think critically about marketing messages. I am and have been practicing, the make do, or do without mantra for years now. But ultimately, in terms of a mindset shift, biggest of all, I feel as though I personally am in the beginning stages of seeing our culture for what it is, which again, I mentioned it in our interview, but it's an illusion designed to make money off of us. It's an illusion. It's not real life. It's not real living. It's not what's really important. And amassing stuff is not the reason why we are here on this earth. So some big thoughts there. Again, Substack post coming to your inbox tomorrow with a celebration of all of your big mindset and habit change wins. If you're on my email list, you'll get it tomorrow. If you're not, you can sign up for free. And this week's show notes, the link's there. We'll be back on Tuesday. If you need me, reach out. If you love this show, please consider supporting it, $5 a month or $50 a year. Thank you so much for supporting this work as we approach 500 episodes. Here's to 500 more. I'll see you Tuesday, and take care.